Okay, so been wanting to make this video. Had this new thing join our family in the last couple weeks, and here it is. It's a new Cybertruck. Finally came about a week and a half ago. But yeah, no, here it is in the flesh. And I'm sure you guys probably already seen plenty of videos on it. If you guys had any interest, you probably already found plenty of videos showing the features and functions of the truck, so I won't really do a video on that, but instead I'll give you my impressions of what it is like to drive. Gonna show you a little bit of the inside. Very unique interior, but I'll get more into it as we get going. Okay, so here we are inside the interior of the Cybertruck, and I'm not gonna really go over the functions and everything on the screen. Wanted to maybe give you a background story as to how we arrived at this particular car and what I think of it so far. If you want to see functions and features and, you know, menu selections and adjustment settings and all that, I would say maybe go watch a different kind of video. Unless, of course, you guys prefer me to do one, just let me know and I can maybe do that later. But like a lot of people who has saw the reveal of the Cybertruck on day one, which was November of 2019, I thought it was probably one of the most interesting looking cars. I didn't think it was ugly. I didn't think it was great. I just thought it was interesting. I think no matter how you try to describe it, I think at the very least you can say it's interesting. Whether you love it or not, that's a personal matter. I will say that ultimately I love it. I've seen pictures, of course, online before the actual release of these cars, and once you see the original prototype, it does look, the dimensions does look a bit off. The front looks wider, the face of it looks wider. I don't know if I can explain it correctly, but it also looked bigger, longer for sure. It had the door handles, if I remember. But in any case, when they finalize the design for mass production, I think ultimately this is really nailed it right on the head. So I had gotten my email. They emailed me to configure my car on March 14th, and when it came time to choose whether I wanted the dual motor or the Cyber Beast, I figured, you know what, I really don't need to go that fast. I don't need to go 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds in a truck, especially a truck of this size. I would probably rather go that fast in a sports car where it would handle better, have better brakes. I can see maybe the appeal of something like that being fast, but a truck just didn't need all that. 600 horsepower in the dual motor I think is plenty enough. For me, it's more than enough for daily use. And keeping in mind that this truck, I think, is probably about the size in between an Escalade short wheelbase and an Escalade long wheelbase. So it's kind of, the length of it is probably right in between. And I have a short wheelbase Escalade sitting right there. More on that later. But I don't even drive that fast. So there's really no point in, you know, getting something to go that fast and pay the extra premium on top to get something that powerful. I prefer having the extra 20 miles. I think the dual motor, I think they rated at 340, but we all know that Tesla is not quite accurate. But that said, I always charge my cars to about 80%, and I'm getting somewhere around 250-ish, I think, on this. So really, it's still more than enough. And so far, I've had it for a couple weeks, and it feels plenty. I mean, I have nothing left to want. So we put in the order March 14th, and finally got the alert from Tesla to come pick this up just a couple weeks ago. So far I will say absolutely love it. When the truck was pulled out and delivered to us, we went to the Long Beach dealership. I had looked over everything because I've saw videos of people who have complained about their Cybertruck, the quality of it. Some people had panel gap issues. I think one of the door latches wasn't latching right, so the door wouldn't shut and the lines would be misaligned. The pedal obviously was a recall. I think everybody knows about that. I don't think I have a screw that I can see right down there, but it's not a big deal. I don't look at it, and it's a fix as far as I'm concerned. But I really combed over this truck when we first received it. I looked at all the panel gaps and I combed through the interior. I will say that this thing is built differently. It is the most solid Tesla built. I would even say that if you didn't care for the design, if you discounted the materials that they use, this thing is built like a Mercedes or BMW. It is that solid. It is it is night and day difference from all the other Tesla cars out there. It's almost as if their quality team was at a higher standard for the Cybertruck line than the others. I mean, it's the only way I can explain it. It's very, very solid. This truck, when you sit inside, it feels like a vault. I mean, it is, I don't know how to convey it into words, but it just feels like a solid brick. And I have a G-Wagon, the 4x4 squared, and that one was sort of the de facto when it came to sort of cars that were built like a bank vault, you know, especially with the way that when you shut the door, you slam it, you feel like it really just, you know, became a, I don't know, kind of like a bank vault, I guess. But this thing, when you shut the door, it doesn't have the same clicking sound that G-Wagon has, if you know what I mean. It shuts like a normal door, but when you shut the door, there's a solidness to it that I can't quite describe, but it also somehow pressurizes in here. It's a very small, I guess it's a very small element to the way this car feels, but you feel it. It's like when you shut the door, it pressurizes, and if the pressure in here kind of feels different from out there. It's a very small thing that you feel. It's not like you go in here, you're like, you know, you feel like you're in a space shuttle or anything like that, but there is some kind of pressure difference. And I attribute that to also the way how this car makes you feel like you're in a solid brick. The sound outside, I mean, you almost can't hear much. It's that quiet in here. But talking about the exterior, again, the panels were fine. I didn't notice anything. There's really not much to say about the paint, right? Because there's no paint. Sitting in here, as far as I'm concerned, I again looked over everything, and things are at a different level compared to other Teslas. But beyond that, I would say this again. If you didn't measure the quality, or I should say the type of material that they used, if you close your eyes, I mean, and you felt around you, it would just feel like a greatly put together car, like a Mercedes or a BMW. Again, that's my opinion. So, but without talking about the material, setting that aside for a second, because overall in here, if you know Teslas, this is in the same design language as all the others, right? So you got the massive screen, you control everything through there, you have the scroll button wheels. It's the functionality of it, the way you interface with the car, it's very Tesla like. So there's not much to say there other than if you know what a Tesla is like, this is pretty much it. But what makes it so different in here, not only from any other Teslas, but just from any other car, is the way it's designed. Now, again, you have a big screen here, is no different than the Model S or Model X. But the way to design it, you really feel like you're in something truly special, something different from anything else out there. It almost feels like you are in some ways kind of like in a spaceship. It's weird. It's like this angle here, the A-pillar. If you ever been in a Star Tours ride at Disneyland, it feels like you're in that canopy. If you haven't, you don't know what I'm talking about, but if you have, yeah, the Star Tours ride, this is what it kind of feels like. That dashboard is the longest dashboard, I think, on any car. I can't reach it to the end where the glass touches the edge of the dashboard. It is that far. I have a Lamborghini, and this dashboard is even more extreme than that, and I thought that was extreme. This one is almost twice the depth of the Lamborghini, mainly because the rake of the windshield. It's one thing that I haven't quite gotten used to yet. That being said, it's only been a couple weeks and I haven't driven this thing every single day, but it is something that is very unique, and again, you have to get used to. One of the other things too is, although the dashboard is long and you can see it to the edge where the windshield meets, but you can't see beyond that to kind of have a visual guidance of where the edge of the car runs to. So really, I had to step outside, kind of study how much, the distance there is from the steering wheel to the front nose of the car, and that's how I kind of picture the reference of how far the car reaches out in front of me. Beyond that though, I mean, the interior it's very clean, it's very functional. I will ding it on a couple things. Nothing big, but worth mentioning, at least from my perspective. One is that there's a big open sort of room right here between the passenger and the driver's seat. It's almost like a small tray, in that there's walls that come up. It's about 4 fingers high on both sides. So I guess you can put some things in there, but it just seems like if you take a sharp turn, things can fall out of either side, depending on which way you turn. But what's dangerous about that, obviously, is if you make a turn, I'm sorry, if you make a left turn, the momentum of the car, sometimes depending on how sharp and how quick you're going, can make something fall out towards your driver's side. Then it gets into the footwell. So if you ever have a perfect situation where you're doing that, something falls in here, and then you're trying to hit the brakes, but instead, that object gets in the way, that could be a problem. That said, I hope someone does make some kind of a storage bin that fits perfectly in this spot, an enclosed storage bin rather. That would be a great product for someone to come up with. The next thing I want to talk about is the steering wheel. It's not a ding against Tesla, but I will say that it's hard to get used to. I don't know how people get used to the yoke, because this is a little bit yoke-ish, except it has the top and bottom connections. When you steer this car, and it does have drive-by-wire, I'm sure you guys know that, so that means obviously you don't have to crank it multiple times to reach the end of either left or right turn. But even then, when you turn, you don't, I don't know, this is a personal thing maybe, but when you turn, you go like this with this truck. Now notice your hands kind of stay with the steering wheel. When I drive some of my other cars, especially like the Escalade, sometimes I'm in sort of a lounge mode, right? I'm kind of relaxed and my hands are up here. It's a round steering, traditional steering wheel. This one is not. The flatness of it, and again, this is personal, but my hand can't seem to really find, it just feels weird. Like if I'm holding this, I'm used to holding it around top of the rim. This one is flat, and for some reason it's just, maybe it takes time, I'm just not quite used to it yet. Now, the thing that feels weird is when you turn, sometimes you turn like this, and I'll end up holding the steering wheel like this, or kind of like this. And what's weird about that is when you make a turn in this traditional steering wheel, you kind of go like this, right? And this one, if you turn like this, all of a sudden now, if you readjust your hands, you might be sort of collapsing your hand inward. So then now you're holding the steering wheel like this, as opposed to the normal circumference of the steering wheel. So that's a little odd to get used to. Again, I don't know that you would, not get used to it over time. I guess it's possible, but for now, it's still something that's just a little off. So anyway, let's go for a drive and then we can talk a little more about this. What is it like to drive? Well, so you have to keep in mind that this thing is still a truck. But having said that, I think it rides really nice. I'm not trying to give credit where credit's not due. I will be as honest as I can. This thing rides unlike any other Tesla. Again, I think it kind of goes back to how solid this thing feels. And I don't mean solid as in it feels heavy. I mean solid as in it really feels like it's just carved out of one sheet of metal. It handles bumps so well. I've been over so many types of speed bumps, some quite large, and this thing soaks it up, no problem. And mind you, this is in sport mode, so it's already handling the steep speed bumps really well in sport mode. There's also a comfort mode you can have, which also softens up the suspension. But for my driving style, this is what I like. Now, this truck, again, you have to remember that it is a truck, but it really has a lot of get up and go, right? So I'm going to stop now, turn on the street, and bam, I'm at 60. So I mean, like, you really have all the speed and power that you need. But what I would like to add to that is it handles really well, surprisingly, for a truck. In some areas it still feels like a truck. In other words, this thing does ride high, and when you make certain sharp turns, it kind of sways a little bit. But I would imagine it's swaying less than some of the other cars, or other trucks rather. The Escalade, for example, when I take that and I'm going down the same street between the Escalade or driving this, there's a street in my neighborhood where it's just windy. It's about 1.5 miles worth of windy road, and you know, if you love driving sports cars, you'll appreciate a road like that. However, if you're driving something like a SUV, an Escalade, when you're trying to make those turns, I mean, granted, you're not supposed to be going that fast, but when you try to make those turns, it really pushes the cars to the edge in a way where, you know, you have to slow down, right? Because you can't take the turns that quick. You can take this car through those turns much quicker. I would say that this leans more towards the handling of a sports car. I mean, it doesn't have the same kind of, you know, R-rated compound tires, but for what it has, this thing really does handle really well. Like, I can take turns much faster in this than, say, an Escalade. The same exact turn. I can go, I don't know, 15, 20 miles per hour faster. That's how well it handles. So, the other thing that I think you guys might like to know is, I mean, this is a selling point for me. I wasn't expecting this, but the stereo system in here is probably one of the best systems out there. We have Mercedes in the family. You know, we have BMWs in the past. You know, we're talking, you know, Nakamichi or Mark and Levinson or Bose or Bang Olufsen. All these other stereo systems. I mean, I've, you know, heard quite a bit of them in the past. This one, I guess, is Tesla's own in-house. Tesla's never been partnered with a major sound system company, not that I know of anyway. So it's always been their own brand. But this is probably one of the best stereo systems out there. You have to hear it for yourself. I mean, other than me telling you, I don't know if you have a chance to listen to one, you'll know. As far as attention goes, this thing still grabs a lot of attention. So in my area in SoCal, I'm probably the 6th Cybertruck in this area that I've seen. I would say I'm probably the 6th one. A couple of them are wrapped, so I recognize them. And then the other ones, which are left bare, You know, I've seen the faces of the drivers, and I've only noticed maybe, like I said, you know, 5 different other owners in the area, and I'm the 6th. Now, the whole point of mentioning that is because I think this is still a novelty to a lot of people around you. I still get a lot of thumbs up, a lot of people curious about what this thing is. You know, and this is a weird sort of take that most people have, which is most people, when they see this online or in pictures, they think one thing or have one opinion. A lot of people don't know what to make of it, but the interactions that I had with people is that they all love it. I mean, you're getting thumbs up, you're getting smiles, people taking pictures. When I'm parked and I'm able to speak to people, you know, they convey that they didn't like it at first, but then when you see it in person, somehow the dimensions somehow work. I mean, certain angles that pictures get, you know, they don't get the right angle, but in the end, they seem to be, you know, converted by the time they have a look of it. So I think a lot of people are coming around to this design. I'm sure there are still a lot of people that don't like it, but to each their own. But I love driving interesting cars, and this, I don't know how you can argue, but I think this is by far one of the most interesting cars that have been released lately. I think this really, I don't know, this is another step up for Tesla. And I will say one thing though. So I have a friend that works in Tesla, in the higher ups, and the reason they don't badge this Tesla but rather a Cybertruck is because they're gonna develop the Cyber brand sort of off on its own. Like, for example, how Chrysler and Dodge, I think Jeep used to be under that brand way back when, and then they kind of branched out and became Jeep on their own, even though it's still the same parent company. So I believe there's going to be future iterations of this sort of cyber bare metal type production, and in different formats. You know, one of the things that I think would have been really cool is if they would have built the Cybertruck in an SUV form. I would have gone for that. That being said, this is a truck. I've never had a truck before, so that gave me also kind of consideration when I placed my order. I figured I love cars, had all types of cars, wagons, sedans, right, SUVs, but never a truck. So I'm very interested in seeing the lifestyle and things that I can do with this truck. I have younger kids. We've all been to beaches, and you know, even though you have an SUV, like when you throw the gear in the back after a day at the beach, you get sand everywhere, right? And then trying to clean the truck is just time consuming. So I can see where, you know, you take something like this to the beach, you throw the gear in the back, it's a truck bed. I mean, it's not a problem, right? You can just rinse it out, you can do whatever. It's so much easier to carry dirty items, you say. So that's one thing I think, you know, will pay dividends when we make use of the truck. Now, that said, I would like to mention one thing that I don't want to say it's a ding, right? Because it's not something that bothers me that much, but it's something that I've noticed by just sort of practice and use. What I'm saying is the back of the truck bed itself, the metal panel that starts behind the second windshield, okay, behind the rear passenger's windshield, that tapers off towards the edge of the tailgate. So, right, so it's like a triangle, and you can imagine the width of that at the base of that triangle is pretty high. In other words, if you're standing on the side of the truck and you want to reach your hand in to try to grab something that's in the bed that's closer to the back seat, you can't. I mean, unless you're super tall, you really can't get your hand down there. So what sucks about that then is you're gonna have to pop open the tailgate, right, and get up into the bed to go and grab that item. That, or I don't know, maybe have a stick sitting back there that can go and, you know, grab it. But that is just the one thing. Again, doesn't bother me that much. We haven't got to a situation where I had to reach over and thought it was a nuisance that I couldn't, and therefore I had to open the bed and jump into it. But who knows? As I get more use out of the truck, we'll see. It might come back to bite. I don't know. We'll see. What more can I tell you? I think the cars, the one thing that I think annoyed me a little bit too about this whole Cybertruck delivery thing, I was very excited at first when they first started rolling out the deliveries, and it took a while, but when you started seeing people trickle out, you know, when the delivery started trickling out and people started getting their cars, it was understandable that at first it would have been Tesla employees, and I think that's what it was. I don't know if maybe Starlink, you know, or just Tesla employees were the ones first getting their car, but I could live with that, right? What I thought was strange and didn't like was how Tesla handled everything else thereafter. So when I placed our reservation back in November of 2019, my reservation number was RN1129, and then there's a whole bunch of other series of numbers behind that. I don't remember where Tesla started. I don't know if it was RN1126 or RN1127, but of course they had to clear the backlogs first, right? And I was hoping that they would do it in sequential order. I don't think they did, because you started seeing people, or I should say celebrities, that all of a sudden had their cars. I mean, Kim Kardashian was taken, there were pictures taken of her getting into her Cybertruck early on. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think Kim is the kind of person that sat there on release day to put in a reservation for a Cybertruck. And it wasn't only her. I mean, everybody, some big names got, I think Lady Gaga got hers, athletes, and who knows what. But anyway, the point being, there are a lot of people who were getting their cars out of order. And then I go onto a Cybertruck forum, and there's a thread in there where people would discuss what their reservation numbers were, and, you know, so on and so on, to try to figure out, in fact, what order they were, in hopes that they would get their Cybertruck soon. What was disappointing was that I saw people who had older, or I should say newer serial numbers, get their cars before people who had older serial numbers. So in sequence, you would imagine the RN1127 reservation holders should get their cars first. But I've seen it where RR1127s were still waiting for the car, and all of a sudden the 1129s, not me at the time, but some others who had 1129 got their trucks first. In fact, there are people who are 1130 that took delivery of their truck, and people who are 1128 or 1129 still haven't received their truck. I mean, you can see it play out online. And then you come to find that Tesla were being selective about where they were dispersing these cars out to. So I think on the West Coast and the East Coast, some in Texas, I think, were sort of the hot spots to where these trucks were being delivered to the actual customers. In the end, it just felt like things were a little bit out of order. I'm not complaining so much, because at the end of it, there were some issues that were popping up, right? The pedal being an issue. I think some people were having software issues. I mean, there were just issues, right? And I felt like, you know what, it would have been better if I didn't feel upset about it, but rather let it play out, take delivery a little later, which is fine, and hopefully the kinks would be ironed out. And sure enough, at least so far, it feels like it did, right? Because my car has been so far perfect. That being said, I hope Tesla in the future doesn't do that on these type of cars. I think the Tesla design group has done a miraculous job with this car. I mean, again, everybody has a different personal taste. I love it, and I am very excited about any other product that comes out of the Cyber line. So we'll see what holds in the future. But again, you know, hopefully they have a better system of delivery in the future. Beyond that, I'm just looking forward to using this truck. We talked about doing a road trip to farther areas of the country, seeing places that we haven't seen before in this truck, because there is just so much room in here. It is very comfortable. These seats, they hold you in very well. There's some pretty good bolsters here. That kind of suggests that there's a sportiness to this truck, and it certainly does have that. There's a lot of, plenty of space in the back. The only one thing I would maybe question a little bit is that the rear passengers, because they're sitting more upright, there's really no recline feature, but is that they might get a little tired on long road trips where they have to sit straight up, right? There's a center fold out sort of armrest that becomes a cup holder at the end of it, but you know, maybe they can lean on that, take a nap, I don't know. They'll just have to find positions where it makes sense for them. Otherwise, pull over, get out, stretch, that kind of thing. But that would be it. A lot of people have mentioned one more thing, and I think this is probably good to bring up as well. But a lot of people have complained that Tesla does not have a good solution for this rear view mirror, because when you have the tonneau cover closed, you can't see out the back, right? You probably have heard about this mentioned plenty of times. I don't disagree with people who feel that way. The thing about it is, a lot of people argue that Tesla should have had a video rear view mirror, right? One that feeds images from the rear camera. And I can totally see and agree with that argument, because even cheaper cars, 20,000, 30,000, maybe in that space, have those type of mirrors. It would seem to be the obvious solution. Why Tesla didn't do it, I can understand, right? Because it's an actual product, it's an actual hardware. The costs will be up, and they're all about minimalization and cutting out costs. So their solution, obviously, is to project the rear view screen right on the main screen. So you see the rear view mirror is pretty much right here. The difference of that is a few inches, right? So I guess what I'm saying is, your eyes, because you've driven all other types of cars, are trained to look up for the rear view mirror. But just to kind of train your eyes to look down a few inches, to be honest, it's not that bad. It really isn't. For me anyway. To the point where I can see and agree with people who argue that this should be a digital mirror. For me, I just feel like it's not that big of a deal. Does it bother me that this isn't? No, not at all. This works just fine. So for me, no complaints about that. So what more can I tell you about this? I love it. That's it so far. It's been a great car to own. It handles great. The ride quality is nice. Some people will ding Tesla for not having the FSD software on this on day one, especially if you have to pay the extra overage for the Foundation series cars, which this is. Does it bother me? No, not really. I know it's coming, so a little patience. It doesn't bother me. I'm enjoying the car now. I would rather have it as I do now and enjoy it than to say wait. I'm lucky enough to be in a position to do so, but so again, that doesn't really bother me all that much. I think the package comes with this sort of a center console tray holder here. It also comes with rubber floor mats and a sunscreen shade, I think, in the Foundation series package. So you are getting some things out of that 20,000 extra that you're paying. Anyway, I don't know what more to tell you about until I get a little more hands-on experience with this car. I've driven it maybe 5 times since I've collected it from the dealer. So if there's anything you guys would like to know, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Let me know what I can address. Should I make a follow-up video for it? I will say that one thing our family has been discussing is what to wrap this car in. I don't mind the bare metal finish. It doesn't bother me. I haven't noticed any rust spots like some other people have. you know, this thing is, as they say, indestructible, right? I mean, it takes dents, it takes kicks. I mean, it's almost like you can't really destroy this car unless you get into a major accident. But that said, you know, the fingerprints thing, it doesn't bother me that much. And to be honest, maybe I live in a very respectful area. I haven't noticed too many people throw their hands on this thing. So it's not too much of an issue. Now, my kids and my wife, on the other hand, they're I wouldn't say they're not fans of it, but they prefer to wrap it in different colors. So we have gloss black being thrown out there, matte black being thrown out there, and matte white being thrown out there. So those are in consideration. I'm in no hurry though. Again, I think this finish looks fine to me. However, I think I have to study it, because you can't, I'm not sure if you can't, or if you should, wash this like any other car. And I don't mean by running it through a car wash. I mean, I rarely do those, if at all. But usually I have a guy that comes out and washes cars. I just don't know if the typical product that he uses will work on this bare metal surface. So we'll have to see. I've seen videos where people are cleaning it with barkeeper's, what is it, barkeeper's friend or something, whatever that is, Windex, alcohol. So, you know, that process might be a little more tedious, but we'll see. Anyway, that's about all I can think of to convey to you guys. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. See you guys next time.